Thank you for joining me again today on Paint a Beautiful Picture. Over the last few days, we've talked about teaching your child to be flexible and nurturing in your child's perspective. You're going to understand why a little better today when we talk about teaching someone to care. Believe it or not, this doesn't just work with children, and there's a reason I know that. I went to a great nursing school in Janesville, Wisconsin, Black Hawk Technical College. I can honestly say I've talked to thousands of nurses in my career, and I've never known of another school that did this. But in my school, we did. I'm going to encourage you to think this through very carefully because I want you to try it with your kids. All right. For 24 hours, we had to be blind. Literally, we had to wear a fully occlusive blindfold. We had to make arrangements for someone to pick us up from school, and we had to agree, and we signed this agreement, and I know we all did it because we all talked about it at length, that for 24 hours we would be blind. Because they wanted us to care about a patient who was blind when they tried to explain to us how they fell down the stairs or how they didn't realize something was there and they got hurt on it. How they couldn't do certain things because they couldn't see. A seeing person would never know any of this. Oh, we learned. Then we did an exercise where we were fully deaf for 24 hours. I want to tell you, I could be blind a long time before I could be deaf. I wouldn't have known that without that exercise. I really learned what it was like to be deaf, and it's awful. And the last thing we had to do was be in a wheelchair for 24 hours. We did all of those things in order that we would be a more concerned and a more effective nurse. It gave us astounding perspective, and I can really say that I believe all of us learned to care differently than we would have without those exercises. So I'm going to invite you to look at this and consider seriously as a parent allowing your children, or if you're really brave, maybe even yourself, to go through a day of life blind, a couple weeks later deaf, and a couple weeks later in a wheelchair. Because we cannot care, really actively care about the other guy until we've walked a mile or a few hours in their shoes. That's really true. And we can imagine it all day long, but until we do it, we really truly don't know what that's like. So when you want to teach someone to care, you want them to look at a person whose life experiences are significantly different than theirs and allow them the opportunity to find out what that is. Because then, unless they're just a completely heartless, cold-hearted, nasty human being, they're going to care differently. Okay? So that's one of the ways you can teach your child to care. Here are some other ways to teach your child how to care. All right? Take your child to a pediatric ward where there are extremely sick kids. Now, granted, this was a little easier pre-COVID, but I still tell you that post-COVID, I believe this is possible, especially if you talk to the head nurse, explain to them what you would like to do, and most especially if you tell them that you will consider a longer-term commitment. In other words, you will take your child there every Saturday morning for 2 hours for the next 3 months. Because often kids on those wards are so lonely. No one comes to see them. I mean, their friends are busy. They're playing baseball. They're riding their bikes. They're going to ballet class. They have piano. They're going to horseback lessons. And they're stuck in the hospital. They have video game systems, but how fun is it to play video games all by yourself all the time? They have board games. Take your child there. Let them see. What in the world would my life be like if I had leukemia and I was going to be in the hospital for the next 6 months? Or one of my students had cerebral palsy. In one school year, out of the 9 months of the school year, he spent 4 months in the hospital. It was horrible. It's really bad. And he was in full isolation. So anyone who went to see him, they had to scrub their hands with special soap. They had to wear a mask. They had to wear a cap over their hair. They had to wear a gown. They had to wear gloves before they could even touch him. Even his own mom and dad. He didn't have skin-to-skin contact. It was horrible. Let your child go visit some sick kids. No kidding. Sit there with them. Find out what that really looks like. They will learn to care. Oh, and they'll also learn to feel differently about their life, most likely. But I'm just saying, teach them to care. Take them to a homeless shelter. As I've shared with you in the past, I took my sons to the Philippines. They didn't like it very well that we were poor for a couple of years because as a single mom, I didn't really have the means to support us in the way I wanted, and I went to nursing school. Well, those couple of years were challenging for every single one of us. But I still took my sons to the Philippines. I worked at the dumps, and they saw what that looked like. For a kid who lived in a cardboard box if he was lucky, or just slept in the trash heap if he wasn't, yeah, my sons never were the same again. They learned to care. And they learned to quit griping and complaining and being grumpy about a lot of things as well. Talk about perspective and teaching someone to care. All right, here are other things. You can say, go visit a nursing home. Ask the director at the nursing home. Say, please tell me someone who never has visitors. Like, never. And make a commitment. Again, you don't just do this once because it's very unfair. If you're really going to learn to care, you have to do this for a while, okay? It's an hour of your life on a Saturday. I promise it is worthwhile for your entire family. And you say, okay, please tell me someone that no one ever comes to visit. And you go visit them. You don't have to be there 20 minutes. Really, in that hour, I mean, by the time you get in the car, go there, visit them, and get home, an hour. No joke, I know this. You spend 20 minutes and you let your child spend time with them. Tell them about how their school week went. Ask the person to tell you things from when they were a kid. So if you're dealing with somebody that's 80 or 90, this is fascinating to a kid, okay? I remember my grandmother telling me how she lived in a day when she had a horse and buggy, and if she wanted to go farther than Ontario, then she had to take a train. Nobody she knew anywhere had a car. They didn't exist. And airplanes? Are you joking me? And then she lived all the way till man went on the moon. And she talked to me about what that was like and the transitions. It was astounding, okay? And when she was a girl, a teenager especially, she couldn't show her ankles to anybody. She wore these crazy boots that were made, there weren't even a right and a left foot. They were all the same shoe, and you just like jammed your foot in there, and over time your foot would stretch the leather and it would be a little more comfortable. Just, oh my word, get your kid to a nursing home, let him talk to an old person, and let them have some time to develop a relationship. First of all, they really will learn to care. They will. If it's a decent old person, even if it's a grumpy old cuss, because I took care of a few of those, and I learned to care about them too because of some of the life experiences that hardened them and some of the challenges that made them feisty. You expose your child to things in order that they can learn to care. You can definitely teach this. There's no question about this, okay? And so then they can write a note and take it somewhere, to a nursing home, to a kid's unit on a hospital, and let that kid or that adult have a handmade card from someone who cares. Make a batch of cookies and make an extra dozen or two and take them again, to a kid's ward or to a nursing home. And mom and dad, let me tell you something, especially if you do not work, like if you're a stay-at-home dad or you're a stay-at-home mom, the way that you also teach someone to care is by your example. Do you know that oftentimes NICUs and ICUs, places where preemie babies are, especially if some of those babies have drug addiction at birth, crack babies or meth babies, you just have no idea some of the implications. Those babies need someone to hold them. That human contact makes a big, big difference in their development. Sometimes they're looking all over creation for someone to just come and hold the babies. I'm not kidding you about this. And so you can go visit a hospital occasionally and hold and rock a baby. There are so many things to do. So let's talk about domestic violence centers. Oftentimes you're never going to know the location, and there are reasons for that. I was in one and I've worked in one. Let me tell you, those needs are huge. I mean, huge. Because you walk out of that house because someone's going to kill you or beat you. You pretty much leave with whatever you got at the moment. And so do your kids. So they are constantly looking for things. And so, things go on sale. You find decent clothes. You find a really good food buy. You find a really awesome deal on towels or shampoo or toothpaste. Do you know family violence centers, homeless shelters, uh, certainly some addiction centers, they're constantly looking for those kinds of things. And if you take your child shopping and you buy those things and then you get them to those places, you're teaching your child to care. Okay. Let me tell you a couple other things that I think are really important. And I've definitely done these things with my own children, and my children care deeply about other people. This is why I know it's really a big, big thing. All of us are born to care about ourselves. We're number one. Sometimes we're the only person on the list. When you get someone else to care, they have to have the perspective to see that not everyone is well off as they are, and they have the opportunity to make a meaningful impact in someone else's life. So you have your kids do things like get toys for needy children in a toy drive close to Christmas, or buy food and help pack it in boxes or packages at Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter, where they go and deliver these things to people who are not as well off, or help to make and serve a meal in a homeless shelter, or bring supplies to a homeless shelter or a violence center or a refugee center. Oh my goodness, let's talk about immigration for a minute. Because I've been in so many nations, when people come into the United States, they don't know a single thing. If you get in touch with an immigration service, one of them I know is Lutheran Immigration Relief Services, LIRS.org, I believe it is. But there are tons and tons of organizations like this that you can help with and you can contribute to. I'm not telling you that money doesn't matter, because it certainly does, but it's a whole lot easier to send a check than it is to put some shoe leather on the ground in going shopping or making the call, finding out what they need, and going to the nursing home, going to the kids' hospital, going to the NICU. I want you to help someone, yourself, your mate, your children, maybe even your bigger community. Learn how to care. This is a skill that is not that difficult to teach, although it will pull your heart and definitely involve some emotional investment, but that will have amazing dividends in enriching your life, definitely in enriching your child's life. Here's my challenge question for you today. Do I care about other people? That's a hard one, isn't it? Sometimes we really don't. We're just wrapped around our own little worlds and our own little problems, and that's all we got. But do I care? And am I teaching my children to care? Okay? I really, really want you to look at this one. I'm going to leave you with this illustration. It just got me in the heart so hard when I saw this. I was somewhere, and it was around Mother's Day, and there were these free flowers available. So a child that used to be a student of mine went to go get some of these for her mom. Her dad saw it, and her dad knew what was going on. The mom starts yelling at the dad. Where is blank? What is she doing? What? I don't understand. How could you let her run off like this? Just like reaming out this dad. I was flabbergasted, truthfully. Although I've definitely seen this happen a lot of times before. But I was just totally blown away by this. The dad, thank God, he was really gracious. And he said, just a minute. She's going to be right back. I know what she's doing. Why did she talk to me? Anyway, it was crazy. You know what? Some people, it's just all about me. That's all there is, honey. It's all about me. I don't want you to raise a child like that, frankly. And even when the child gave their mom the flowers, she was still ticked. Kind of crazy. But you know what? All of us have been there where it's just all about us and we can't see past that. We don't have any perspective. I want you to teach your child to care. You know where this really pays dividends? Is within the family. Because you don't just learn to care about one person and then everybody else forget them. As you develop care and compassion in your spirit, in your life, it just keeps getting bigger. Okay? Remember, we talked about be blind for a day, be deaf for a day, sit in a wheelchair? Encourage your child, when possible, if they have a special needs student in their school, to be friends with them. Once you've had them be blind or deaf or sit in a wheelchair, it's not going to be that big of a leap for them to know that that child is a real person with feelings and thoughts and ideas, who sometimes is really lonely because they're different, who sometimes doesn't know how to interact quite the same because they don't see the world the same, and they don't hear the world the same, and they cannot access the world the same, depending on their life situation. So as your child learns to care, they will become a much more caring and compassionate human being. It will matter for them, and it will matter within your family. I hope you understand the value now of teaching someone to care. So I hope that you will gently care for your own family and even expand that care to someone else who could really benefit from your love and your tenderness today. Thank you so much for joining me on Paint a Beautiful Picture. You may find additional information on our paintabeautifulpicture.com website. Additionally, you may watch me on Rumble, and you may also listen to a podcast on Buzzsprout or Spreaker, all under the name Paint a Beautiful Picture. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. You may subscribe, and if you are interested in receiving notifications, please hit the notifications button.